the gravity of his words and actions. There will now be hearings as to costs.
The one photo
which could
everyone
return have just
expected
made the
never
decision to
appeared,
move
and
on
somehow
have a
that
clean
made the story
slate.
even bigger.
Which is
For
why I
years,
think, to go
every
back to your
interaction
point
between
now-
Prince Harry,
So
Meghan
you
Markle,
mentioned,
and the
but we
royal
know how your
family
brother
seemed
feels
destined to
about
become a
you.
headline.
And
Every appearance sparked debate.
why
Every
it
silence
seems
sparked
like
even more.
he is
So when
this
reports
man that
emerged
is
that Harry and
trying to
Meghan had
find
privately
an
reunited
end
with King Charles and
somewhere,
Queen Camilla,
because his life
something
is in
felt different.
chaos. He's
There were no
broken.
cameras
He's in a
waiting
position
outside,
now
no
where
carefully staged family portrait,
he
no
needs-
triumph and
yeah,
balcony
he's
appearance,
in an
just a
elevated
private meeting
status
behind
as
closed
someone who is
doors.
a prince, but he doesn't
Before you
have
go,
the
here's the
people
question
around
nobody
him
seems to
now.
agree
It's
on.
just completely
Was this
chaotic.
really a
And
private
I'm
step toward
scared for his
reconciliation?
future, to be
Or was
quite
it simply
honest.
another
It just
chapter in the
seems like-
ongoing battle over who controls the royal narrative? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every one of them, and some of the best insights come from viewers like you. And if you enjoy uncovering the hidden stories, palace tensions, and royal developments the mainstream headlines often miss, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next report. Because the next move from Harry, Meghan, King Charles, or the palace could change everything. And when it happens, you'll hear it here first. For a brief moment, it looked as though everyone involved had finally chosen something rare, silence. But less than a week later, new reports began surfacing. Not about what was said inside the room, not about who apologized, not about whether old wounds had healed. Instead, the conversation shifted toward emotions, perceptions, and competing narratives. And that raised a question that may be even more important than the reunion itself. If privacy was the goal, why did the story grow louder afterward? For years, relations between Prince Harry and the royal family have been defined by public tension. Interviews, documentaries, a best-selling memoir, court battles, headlines that seem to arrive almost weekly. Against that backdrop, the reported reunion carried enormous symbolic weight, not because anyone expected instant reconciliation, but because it represented something that had become increasingly rare, direct contact away from public scrutiny. According to reports, the meeting took place privately and involved key members of the family. What immediately stood out was what didn't happen. No official photographs were released, no detailed statement followed, no public celebration appeared on palace channels. For royal watchers, this was unusual. In the modern monarchy, images often shape public understanding. A single photograph can communicate unity, distance, forgiveness, or tension. This time, there was no photograph, and that absence quickly became part of the story itself. Because when the public receives almost no information, curiosity starts filling the gaps, and that vacuum wouldn't remain empty for long. But the missing photograph created a space for something else to take its place, and what came next changed the entire conversation. Only days after reports of the reunion emerged, media coverage began focusing on a different angle. Not the meeting itself, not the king, not the future of the monarchy. Instead, attention turned toward Meghan's reported feelings about the trip. Articles citing unnamed sources described emotions, frustrations, concerns, and personal perspectives. Almost immediately, debate exploded online. Supporters argued that anonymous sourcing is common in celebrity and royal reporting. Critics questioned how such personal details found their way into the public sphere so quickly after a supposedly private family moment. What made the reaction so intense wasn't necessarily what the articles revealed, it was what they didn't reveal. The public still didn't know what happened inside the reunion. No one knew exactly what was said. No one knew whether any major breakthrough occurred. Yet suddenly there was a growing narrative about how people involved allegedly felt. And that distinction mattered, because facts and feelings are not the same thing. The less information people have, the more influence narrative can hold. And soon the conversation stopped being about a family gathering altogether. The real battle wasn't over the meeting, it was over who got to define what the meeting meant. Modern royal coverage isn't just about events, it's about interpretation.
The palace understands is, the media understands is, Harry and Meghan understands is too. For years, different sides have attempted to shape public understanding of the same story. A palace statement may emphasize duty, a newspaper may emphasize conflict, a documentary may emphasize personal experience. None of those perspectives are identical, and when a major event happens behind closed doors, control over the narrative becomes even more valuable. This is why the reported reunion carried so much significance. Without photographs, without transcripts, and without detailed statements, interpretation becomes the battlefield. Every article matters, every source matters, every word matters, because in the absence of certainty, perception becomes reality for millions of viewers. Some commentators suggested the emotional reporting benefited Harry and Meghan. Others argued the coverage was simply ordinary journalism. The truth may be more complicated, but one thing became impossible to ignore. The reunion itself was no longer the biggest story. The narrative surrounding the reunion had become the main event, and while the debate intensified, Harry was dealing with a completely different problem. The reported reunion didn't happen in isolation. It occurred during a period already filled with pressure. Legal
legal challenges, media scrutiny, ongoing debates surrounding security arrangements, questions about future visits to Britain, questions about his role,
questions about his future relationship with the institution he left behind. Every appearance seemed to generate another wave of discussion. For Harry, the timing couldn't have been more complicated. Even positive developments risked being overshadowed by controversy. A family reunion that might have symbolized progress was suddenly competing with headlines focused on conflict. And that's where public perception became increasingly divided. Some observers saw a man trying to reveal damaged relationships. Others saw someone trapped in an endless cycle of public disputes. Both interpretations gained traction, both found audiences, and both added more pressure to an already complicated situation. Yet, while Harry stood at the center of the storm, another figure remained largely out of sight, and her absence became impossible to ignore, because sometimes the most powerful presence in a story is the person who isn't there. One of the most discussed aspects of the entire episode wasn't something Meghan did, it was something she didn't do. She wasn't highly visible during key moments. There were no major public appearances dominating headlines, no dramatic speeches, no direct responses, and yet discussion about her seemed to grow by the day. Why? Because absence creates questions, questions create speculation, and speculation generates attention. Supporters argued that staying out of the spotlight demonstrated restraint. Critics argued that the attention still found its way back to her. Both sides used the same facts to reach completely different conclusions. That alone shows how polarized public perception has become. In today's media environment, visibility isn't always measured by appearances. Sometimes influence comes through conversation. Sometimes the people generating the most headlines are nowhere near the cameras. And as debate intensified, a deeper contradiction started emerging, one that extended far beyond a single reunion. Because the biggest question wasn't about Meghan at all, it was about privacy itself. For years, privacy has been one of the defining themes of Harry and Meghan's public story. They have repeatedly spoken about media pressure, public scrutiny, and the impact of constant attention. Yet critics often point to documentaries, interviews, books, and public appearances as evidence of a different reality. This creates a paradox. Can someone seek privacy while also participating in public storytelling? Some say yes, others say those goals inevitably collide. The reported reunion reignited that debate, because even when details remained hidden, the story continued expanding. The public wanted answers, the media wanted context, commentators wanted interpretation. Everyone wanted something, and every attempt to manage that attention seemed to generate even more attention. The result was a cycle that felt increasingly familiar. Privacy becomes news. The news creates curiosity. Curiosity creates more coverage. And the cycle repeats.
But the most surprising contradiction wasn't happening in Britain. It appeared after Harry returned across the Atlantic. And what happened next left many observers asking a completely different set of questions. Shortly after the reunion discussions dominated headlines, Harry appeared publicly once again. The setting couldn't have looked more different. No private estate, no closed doors, no secrecy. Just cameras, photographers, and public attention. For some observers, the contrast was striking. Here was a figure often associated with concerns about media intrusion, standing comfortably in front of media cameras. Supporters saw nothing unusual. Public appearances are part of public life. Critics saw something else. They questioned whether the issue was attention itself or specific kinds of attention. Fair or unfair, that perception gained momentum, because public figures are often judged not by individual moments, but by patterns. And many people believed they were seeing a pattern emerge, one that connected media criticism, celebrity appearances, royal tensions, and personal branding into a single complicated story. Whether that interpretation is accurate remains open to debate, but it set the stage for the biggest question of all. Because if every chapter leads back to the same conversation, what does that reveal about the future? The reported reunion may eventually fade from the headlines. The articles will be archived. The debates will move on. New controversies will emerge.
But one question is likely to remain. Can Harry and Meghan ever truly separate themselves from the royal family story? Years after stepping away from royal duties, nearly every major discussion still cycles back to the monarchy. Every reunion matters. Every disagreement matters. Every public appearance is viewed through their lens. Perhaps that's inevitable. Perhaps it's impossible to escape a story that shapes so much of their lives. Or perhaps the connection remains valuable to everyone involved, whether they admit it or not. The meeting itself remains private. The conversations inside may never become public. No one outside that room knows exactly what happened. But the reaction afterward revealed something fascinating. Even when there are no photographs, even when there are no official statements, even when nobody is supposed to know the details, the story somehow keeps growing. And if a private reunion generated this much public debate, imagine what could happen when the next chapter finally arrives. Because the meeting may be over, but the battle over its meaning has only just begun.